something that hadn't really occurred to me. I don't know why, but it apparently every luxury brand CEO, and maybe I'm not in touch with luxury brands. I have a Rolex, I have a couple of Lexuses, I have some Greg Norman golf shirts that all cotton, and they're wonderful in hot weather. It's way better than this silky stuff that looks like heck when you sweat all over it. Anyway, so I guess I have some tangential touch on luxury brands. But, the problem is in America and Europe, I'm the guy who, they market to, who really couldn't care less. The key to making luxury brands work is when everyone is so in tune with the luxury brand that they know that you've got last year's model of Prada. If you do, that you can't have that you got to go get the $800 pair of shoes or the $1,200 pair of shoes just to keep up with things. And for that, you want people below 40 who, don't care about Kant or Malthusian economics or whatever else. So China's the target. And that's kind of great news, because it really does say a sort of China's moved toward a more capitalistic controlled economy. And of course, capitalism, is never quite the open Wild West that Adam Smith envisioned. And that's probably good, As people get more money, not only are they concerned about luxury goods, but they're concerned about the freedom to buy them, personal freedoms, personal self-expression, freedom of speech, those kinds of things. Maybe they aren't. Maybe they trade that for luxury. I don't know. But anyway, the point is that this market is disruptible, so it's interesting, and I think we really want to keep our eye on the Chinese market. Scott Adams today was talking about how if if yesterday, things got a little more heated with the Chinese trade war, and he said, ultimately we have to work together. We're going to work together. And so if there were particular stocks that were hit hard yesterday by the less than good news, he suggested it might be a good idea to buy them, and also said you shouldn't take investment ideas from a cartoonist. He does the Dilbert cartoon, but he's been right a lot, so you can take it or leave it. Anyway, moving on. This was an article I really thought was good. David Dodd, I'm gonna have to go chase him down, and what he illustrated, and this is going to apply to a lot of different articles. He illustrated that the value of personalization has been largely unquestioned. When we compare the value of tailored product recommendations, which is one of the main areas where we try to get personalization right, we rarely compare it against a generic upsell. What we compare it to is no upsell, because we don't want to take the time to do the real test. When you do experimental design, you have to allow for a placebo effect. You have to allow for halo effects. You have to allow for things that you didn't do in the holdout sample. And if you're going to compare a huge investment with personalization, first of all, what you do is you mock it up. You pretend you know what the customer's interested in, and you use that. So you can compare personalization or upsell with no upsell. Just offer something. And what you'll find is I think you'll get about 80% of the gain that you get with highly complex personalization and algorithms, right? So, as I've said before, Amazon, when they started doing, real early on, they wanted to do upsell, and they wanted to do related product. And so when a product came on the first day, when people started buying it, they would keep track of what else they bought. And they had a message that said, people who bought this also bought. And actually, I was on Amazon yesterday looking for that book on influence. And there was one item in there, people who bought this also bought. Now, that book came out in the 80s, so it's very likely that was just an old listing that didn't have the you might also like. See, if you go with the you might also like, you're moving personalization into predictive, and you're suggesting that you actually know. Whereas if you say people who bought this product also bought, and you can even add it up. What Amazon did was they just took the first 5 items without any sense of appropriate connection, right? So the influence book, one of the influence books that came up, also came up with the Dalai Lama's cat, which sort of surprised me. But anyway, the next level would be to take the people who also bought and just query those by each item and find out the most often purchased books together, or the most often purchased. People who bought this item also bought. That doesn't mean you have to take the first 5, even if they're completely unrelated and stupid. I might buy a children's book, and I might, because I needed it, and I might also buy a business book. And those don't make any sense. But if you allowed that to work over time and then did the query backwards, you don't need any fancy algorithms for that. You just count up, the most frequent, the mode, I think it is, the most frequent occurrence of parallel. So there's easy ways to do personalization that aren't personalized at all, that don't take into account all your browsing history on every other site you've ever been to, all your search terms that you've ever used. What did my wife ask me about? Bosnia Herzegovina last night. So now Google thinks I'm going to Herzegovina. Okay, yeah. We were doing a crossword puzzle. They don't know the context, and I don't have Siri, so if they had Siri, maybe they could figure it out that we're doing crossword puzzles. I don't think so. And so, actually, as you get more and more inclusive, you get more and more confused, and the AI doesn't work. So this is why personalization is such a big challenge, because you can over-personalize. 70% of surveyed marketers said personalization has a strong or extremely strong impact on advancing customer relationships. Yeah, but more than half of the respondents said personalization produces increased conversion rates. Compared to what? Compared to nothing, most of the time, right? But when you get it wrong, 1/3 of consumers think personalization is important, but 2/3 say if you get it wrong, we'll leave, right? And so the next thing is hyper-personalization. So the correct strategy for marketers is to personalize everything they can as fast as they can, right? No. The majority of consumers think it's unethical to use their data for that purpose, right? People react strongly when they perceive personalization goes too far. They like it a little. It's best when it's not thought about. And the wisdom of Amazon's original strategy is profound. People who bought this also bought. No implication that we've figured you out. We've kept track of everything you do. We don't have to keep track of anything you do. We just have to look at our own items, and that's perfectly legitimate. And so when you start rethinking the strategy for personalization, it might be to throw it out entirely, to go back to the old school. What do people who buy this also like to buy? No implication of predictive. And see if that works as well. I'll tell you one thing, it's a lot cheaper. Okay? Marketers are facing a catch-22 when it comes to personalization. On one hand, most customers and potential buyers say they want personalization and say they're willing to provide personalized data. At the same time, most customers and potential buyers are growing more and more concerned about privacy. There's a whole article on risk management that was so poorly written, I didn't want to talk about it. Okay? Hey, that was interesting. Went right into another one. Okay. So you have to think about what you want to achieve. What you want to achieve is upsell. Your goal is not to predict what I will buy next, because I can't tell you what I'll buy next. I really can't. I have no success in predicting me, knowing all I know about me. Look at my YouTube purchases. If you could. They're all over the place. They're nuts. Why do I like YouTube? Because they have a pretty good return policy. They pressure the sellers, and the prices are good, and they come, and I have it all set up. It's the same reason people like Amazon Prime. And we're going to talk about user experience gone wrong tomorrow, and how that's more foundational, more important than all of this, I can predict what you'll do next. Get over it. It's not as important. You pile up all the data, and you're liable. Think about alternatives.